Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got some kind of show in store for you guys. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. And also, we have a pretty cool survey that we're running today. We have it pinned in the comments below. Only take about 2 to 4 minutes to fill it out, and you have an opportunity to win some pretty cool Amazon gift cards. So make sure you go ahead and do that. We'll appreciate that. Anyway, let's get into this topic here. Stephen A. Smith has been under fire over the last 48 hours for his controversial comments on movie megastar Will Smith. I think on the weekend of the release of Bad Boys 4, Stephen A. Smith took to the Stephen A. Smith show to essentially go out there and publicly ask Will Smith, why hasn't he given the black community an explanation after his infamous slap on Chris Rock on the Oscar stage? He also jumped the gun by saying, because he was, I don't know where he got his information from, he was essentially operating under the assumption that Will Smith's movie wasn't doing good, and in fact, it wasn't going to do good. Actually, for those of you who forgot what Stephen A. Smith had to say, want to play a little bit of his comments and then want to come back and react to it. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say there.
I bring that up because I wanted to get to the latest installment of the Bad Boys franchise, Bad Boys, Ride or Die, which debuted Wednesday. It's the second best reviewed film after Bad Boys for Life. That's what they're telling me. It's also the biggest film for Will Smith since his infamous 2022 Oscar slap of the great comedian himself, the one and only Chris Rock. Pre-sales for Ride or Die are behind that of Bad Boys for Life, of course, which hit a franchise high opening of 101 million worldwide back in early 2020. Domestic projections for Ride or Die were at 50 million. But that reportedly simmered to 40 million. Could the lack of pre-sales be because people have not forgiven Will Smith for that slap right there? How much you want to make a bet it does? And this is why I wanted to have this discussion with y'all. Because I want to emphasize that right now, as we see Will Smith and Martin Lawrence on the circuit promoting this new film, once upon a time, you couldn't find a bigger fan of Will Smith than me. Martin Lawrence, you can't find a bigger fan of Martin Lawrence than me. Ladies and gentlemen, in all likelihood, I'm going to go see Bad Boys, Ride or Die, because I'm such a huge Martin Lawrence fan. And believe it or not, I still will never stop being a Will Smith fan. I'm not surprised at all that pre-sales have simmered. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it ultimately plummeted once all is said and done. And you know why I feel that way, ladies and gentlemen? Because I think that I'm speaking not for everybody, not for most, but at the very least millions of people out there when I say what I'm about to say. I'm not nearly as interested as seeing Will Smith in the movies than I am of seeing him doing an actual sit-down interview with somebody to explain why he did what he did.
So you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say. Those were his initial comments. But what ended up happening was he was actually wrong. According to the Hollywood Reporter, Sony's Bad Boys Ride or Die jolted the battered box office back to life with a better than expected domestic opening of 56 million and 104 globally. Moreover, it puts Will Smith on the road to career comeback 2 years after his infamous Oscar slap. Here's the interesting part. Ride or Die reuniting Smith and Martin Lawrence is his fourth outing in Sony's long-running franchise and earned an A cinema score in North America alongside generally positive reviews. Just as promising. Get this. 44% of the audience was between the ages of 18 and 34, showing Smith has a following among younger consumers. Black moviegoers made up the largest quadrant of the audience with 44%. 44%. And Stephen A. Smith said he thought the movie was going to do poorly because blacks were not going to support Will Smith because of his incident with the Oscar thing. So in typical Stephen A. Smith fashion, he puts out something, they call him out, and then he goes back on his show and he reacts to what people had to say. So yesterday he published a show on his channel where he was responding to the critics. In his mind, he was standing off. But in my personal view, he begrudgingly apologized for his absolutely ridiculous comments that he made about Will Smith. So those are the comments that we want to get into. I want to play most of it for you, and then want to come back and really get into the meat and potatoes of the show. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say here.
Welcome back to this edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you like I love to do at the very least 3 days a week over the digital airwaves of YouTube. I got to get back to the Will Smith topic that I tackled because it created some noise, as most things that I usually do. It's just the way it goes for me. I'm not here to apologize for anything, but I am here to clarify because I want to make sure that everybody understands where I was coming from. When I spoke Friday about Will Smith and the new Bad Boy movies, the Bad Boys Ride or Die movie coming out with him and Martin Lawrence that had been out for a couple of days. First things first, our initial reporting was stating that it was coming up short compared to what it had done numbers-wise in the past at the box office for Bad Boys 1, 2, and 3. Well, it turns out that this was a very productive weekend for Bad Boys Ride or Die, and Martin Lawrence and Will Smith deserve a boatload of credit for that because they got people returning to the movie theaters. So that was a huge, huge plus, and we can't ignore that, and let's give props where props is due. But I want to get more specific into what my take is before I have my boy on. Even though we're both in a similar venue, we're right near one another. I was having some technical difficulties, so he's going to be in a separate room because we down here in Florida, but he's right here in the same vicinity as me. I just got him in a separate room, and I'll let you see who he is in a second. Let me say this to y'all. I don't know if I'll ever get over what Will Smith did to Chris Rock. But that doesn't mean I have to. And it doesn't mean that it's a license for me to negatively impact Will Smith. Will Smith slapping Chris Rock was a devastating thing. I'm not talking just for Chris Rock, who's a friend of mine. I'm talking for the black community because obviously Will Packer was the first black producer to be doing the Oscars in its history. And that was a devastating blow to him. Will Smith came out with Emancipation a year later for Apple and all of that stuff. Will Smith was sensational in that movie. So was Antoine Fuqua, the esteemed director and producer extraordinaire. One could easily argue that both of them would have won an Oscar for that, and that Will slap cost Will Smith and Antoine Fuqua an Oscar. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about black folks everywhere aspiring to be in this business, aspiring to succeed, and something like that happens and it was a blemish on all of us. Because I know how much white America reveres Will Smith. And the thinking along the lines in my mind was, hell, if he did that, what would the rest of us do? There are certain things that happen in the lives of an individual where those incidences are used as a license to castigate the rest of us. And that's what I was thinking about when I said what I said Friday about being torn as to wanting to go see the movie but not wanting to see Will Smith. I wasn't encouraging anybody else not to do it. I was just saying that I was having trouble dealing with it. And then I got a call from my man Charlie Mack. Charlie Mack is Will Smith's former security, good friend of Will Smith, closely connected to Will Smith for decades. I've known Charlie Mack for nearly 30 years. I got a lot of love for him. And he was on fire, calling me because he disagreed with my opinion and was going back and forth with me about it. And then he caught me because he says, Stephen A., what about grace? What about grace? This is how he feeds his family. This is how he earns his living. He don't have a right to earn a living ever again. He can't make a mistake, Stephen A., when he never made a mistake before. That's a damn good point. Bigger point he made was Martin Lawrence. Because we all look at Martin Lawrence. If you watch Martin from back in the day, ladies and gentlemen, you can't find nobody that loved Martin Lawrence more than me. That brother is brilliant. That brother has done nothing but create laughs and laughter for us for decades. We should all revere him. And he's the one that brought Will Smith on to Bad Boys. And Will Smith's still doing Bad Boy movies with him because you know he damn sure ain't trying to do it with anybody else. That's love right there. That's loyalty right there. And then you got to take into account the inordinate amount of people who work on a movie and how they're employed and how they have opportunities. And all because Will Smith is doing what he's doing. And then you got to take into account the fact that throughout Will Smith's life, not just his career, there has been exponentially far more good than bad. And I certainly did not mean to gloss over that. I didn't mean to act like that wasn't reality, that that didn't happen. And so I really appreciate my man, my brother, Charlie Mack, for calling me and passionately making that case to remind me of what Will Smith is, who he is, and what he has meant to all of us. You see black people gravitating to him. I'm getting text messages and emails all over the place. Who said he lost our support? He never lost it. We didn't like what he did. It was unfortunate what he did. But damn it, we love Will Smith and we forgive him. You don't hear Chris Rock talking about it and complaining about him. Eventually they'll meet and they'll talk, Stephen A. We heard all of that. So I got to stand down.
Did y'all just hear what Stephen A. Smith said? Did y'all just hear what Stephen A. Smith said? You know, I was trying to defend him with the WNBA comments that he was making. I think he's correct about that. But a lot of people were coming at Stephen A. Smith, and I think it had more to do with than the comments that he made, the back and forth that he had with Monica McNutt. People came at Stephen A. Smith for things like this. They came at him for reasons. First of all, the guy goes up there and says, I've made news, which is nothing new. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's how he starts off the show. He then goes on to basically imply that he somehow, his words could sway people enough for them to not go out there and watch Will Smith's movie. Does Stephen A. Smith think he is as popular or as beloved as Will Smith? Does Stephen A. Smith believe he has enough pull to influence people in one direction or another to not go see a Will Smith movie? Is that where is that the universe that Stephen A. Smith lives in? He really, really believes that? Stephen A. Smith and Will Smith are in two totally different universes. Two totally different stratospheres. Will Smith is a global icon. Stephen A. Smith is hated in sports media. I repeat, Will Smith is a global icon. Stephen A. Smith is despised in sports media by a lot of people, and I was recently defending him. We've been watching Will Smith since Fresh Prince. Bro, what are you talking about right now? Stephen A. Smith has an overinflated self-view of himself. That was, you mean you really got to be out of touch to say something like that? You really got to be out of touch. Stephen A. Smith believe he on the same level as Will Smith? Like, are you even joking with me right now? Is this what happens when you work at ESPN? You go there and it just fries your brain. You now all of a sudden think that you're bigger than who you are. Like, who are we kidding here? Who are we kidding? No wonder Stephen A. Smith wants to run for office. Is considering running for. Well, with these type of with this, if you have this worldview of yourself, then I guess you could think that you could run for office. Not to say that he can. I'm not here to stop him. So that was crazy. Finally, where was the apology? And you were wrong at every single level. And you're talking about Charlie Mack had to call you to walk you off to reel you in because he didn't need to do that. It was quite clear that you were wrong on everything you were saying. Number one, you were wrong by saying that he needs to owe the black community apology. No, he doesn't. Will Smith doesn't need to apologize to me. I don't know Will Smith. Moreover, Will Smith doesn't know me. I'm not sitting here waiting for Will Smith to apologize to me. Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Then you then took it a step further and said, oh, well, it's one of the reasons why the black community may not be supporting you. Did you ever think about that? It turns out you were wrong. Because basically 4 out of every 10 people that went to go see the movie were black. So you were dead wrong. And then you go up there and double down with some nonsense. Like, I'm lost. I mean, I'm not surprised because, again, it's Stephen A. Smith. But what surprises me the most is he felt like he could influence people to go see or not see a Will Smith movie. Excuse me? What? What are we even talking about? Will Smith and Stephen A. Smith? Like, Stephen, like, what? What? Like, I'm confused. You must be getting them YouTube views, letting them go to your head, or them ESPN views go to your head. Like, who are we kidding here? You're nowhere in the same, you're not even in the same universe as Will Smith. Not even in the same universe. Like, that is crazy to me. He's not apologetic. Steven, if you wonder why people hate you, it's this reason. You're so arrogant even when you're wrong. That's what's annoying. You are wrong with everything you said, but you're talking like as if you were right. That's the part that kills me. But to suggest that you could somehow affect, bro, what the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with you? What world do you live in? I'm out.